Welcome to The Pause, the Hush Hour podcast, in which I, Alicia Davis, sound healer and meditation guide, chat to people I find inspirational and fascinating, and I hope you will too. We are beginning to learn about the quantum nature of a human being, the complex interwoven relationships between our physical structure, our psyche, our energetic systems, and the soul that animates it all. The vagus nerve is a vital part of this complicated web, wandering as it does through the body from the cranium, regulating mood, immune response, digestion, and heart rate. Most of us would have no idea we even have such an important primary nerve, but Prune Harris, the energy expert, knows it very well. Prune is a synesthete, able to see energy from birth, who has acquired an international reputation for the depth of her knowledge, the warmth of her presentation, and the empowerment she shares with everyone she meets, both online and in person.
So for me, I'm working in that really exciting place of the deep belief that when you can understand your energy, you can transform your world. And of course, when you transform your world, you help transform the world for all of life and all of creation. So I was born able to see energy, and it's through that lens I've really experienced my own life. I've always been able to see the energy around humans, within humans, in the natural world, animal, trees, stones, of this amazing that we live within, that big interconnected web. And so really that's me. I had a private practice for 20 years, and then I started interweaving the teaching into those years, and then it just got way too much with private practice and teaching. So now I do a mixture of in-person classes and online classes. Of course, that was one of the gifts of the entire COVID experience, was that so many people, and whether you're delivering classes or taking classes, it became much more accessible, didn't it?
Definitely.
So yeah, that is me, and that is my joy.
Fantastic, and it's so wonderful to be able to live your purpose, isn't it? So, I mean, it took me quite a long time to come to this point. I don't know if it was the same for you, but I've been on a journey since about 1993, sort of working through different activities, different work environments, different what should I say? Not vocations, because I never really found I had my vocation until I got to doing what I'm doing now. I would say, but everything sort of came together, and it all works together. And I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing now. And this is why I wanted to talk to you, but also because I think, as I explained before, that my primary reason for coming to you was that my mother had a vagotomy. I never can say that right. Vagotomy, sorry, in her 50s. And at that time, we didn't understand the importance of the vagus nerve. And looking back, she suffered a lot with anxiety, with discomfort. She was not at ease in herself throughout her whole life, really. And obviously, personal background comes into that. But I really wonder how much of it was affected by the fact that she'd had this operation, which obviously they thought they were doing for the right reasons. But for me, I think would have had a really detrimental effect on her well-being in general. So
and why was it that she had that surgery?
Well, I think she had duodenal ulcers, or peptic ulcers. I can't remember which, duodenal, I think. And I believe, looking into it, in those days that was one of the remedies that they considered for people who suffer with ulcers. I know, this is before they realised that it could be caused by another thing that I can't say. What's that infection called? Oh, God, begins in H. Wrong word. Do you remember it? Anyway, never mind. Oh, you've just frozen. Oh, I think it might have something like connection. Yes, you're back. Did I freeze?
Yes.
Ah, okay. I think it might be mine. There's not much I can do about my connection because it is where it is. So, yeah, so perhaps you could talk about that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating, the vagus nerve. It's a really hot topic right now, and I'm glad of it because it's part of, well, let me first of all maybe even explain what it is.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Cranial nerves. Yeah. It's one of the cranial nerves, and it's the only of the cranial nerves that comes all the way down from the amazing brain that we have all the way down into the body. And actually, it's an exquisitely light-filled energy. When I look at that vagus nerve, it carries all of our nervous system, carries a particular vagus nerve, just thrums with it. It connects into all of our organs. And of course, in our mainstream scientific view of just a few decades ago, it was considered that still the brain ran the body. Yeah? The brain was this amazing the body was a machine that was run by the software of the brain. Thankfully, most of us are moving beyond that concept now, including mainstream science. And so we have the understanding that the vagus nerve, it conveys information from the body up into our mind, our awareness, our brain mechanisms. So it's this beautiful understanding that the body is part of our experience in here on Earth. Mm-hmm. It's not something that we have to kind of drag around with us as we try and attain some kind of extra or ultra purpose. Our soul, our experience in here on life is totally determined by our ability to be in it. And the vagus nerve is key in that, because it's part of this amazing network of communication that is within the entire nervous system and within the entire body. So the vagus nerve really helps you create what we might call consciousness or mind. Yeah? It's that amazing place of being able to move you away from the sympathetic, the fight, flight, freeze response into this amazing parasympathetic. And when our body is working through that parasympathetic arm of the nervous system, then we're able to expand, we're able to relax, we're able to really experience that joy. So I really hear your story about your mum. And of course, it's the movement around. In that case, the vagus nerve is deemed to be a possible solution to a symptom. And of course, the question, why was the symptom there in the first place? And that vagus nerve can be amazing for kind of repatterning things. But there has to be the ability to access it, to work with it, to move with it in those beautiful ways.
Yes, of course, in those days, nobody really explored in that way. It was all, as you said earlier, about it was a totally mechanistic way of looking at the human body. And you take one part out and everything else will just carry on. Now the understanding is beginning to come that it's a really quantum thing, and that everything is there. Actually, I was very interested to hear you say in your video that even if the nerve is cut, it still exists energetically. And that I find that very interesting. I suppose it's a bit like a phantom limb in some ways, So it doesn't go away, but I wish we'd known this. You see, from Mum, it could have helped her so much.
But in a way, Alicia, you are helping. Her story is inspiring you to move forward and live your story. So for me, I always, anytime we're in that kind of focus of the pain or the experience of a story, whether it's personal or anybody else's, when we can kind of move back, and I do firmly believe that as a human race right now, we're in big leaps of consciousness. And those consciousness is based on story, isn't it? It's based on our understanding of our own story. It's based on the story of separation and the fact that we no longer wish to be living that story of separation. So your mum has brought a really beautiful passion to your personal story. And it's that desire to help
people. So I think that's not to diminish the suffering.
Not at all. No, I didn't take it like that.
You're transmuting that.
Because I think, for me as well, it's only relatively recently that I came across exercises you can do to balance the vagus nerve, like using your eyes and looking in different directions.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was, and that's what actually got me back on the track. It was during COVID, I think.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody put up this video. I thought, oh, let me try that. And I had a stiff neck at the time, and I did the exercise. And lo and behold, after I'd done it, there was a lot more movement and freedom in the neck. I thought, wow, okay, there's something in this. Let me look into it. So then I started to think about Mum. And hence arriving on your virtual doorstep.
So, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah, we are so powerful, aren't we? Just by moving your arms, that very simple connection into helping your system right itself. That's one of the things I'm so daily wowed at and inspired by us, is the ability just to take something that seems to be stuck, and through intention, attention, and physical process, we can help clear it.
It is incredible. And of course, the vagus nerve isn't working alone. It's not the only system in place. It works in conjunction with the vital vessel, and what's the other thing again?
So when we think of first of all, we can't take away the vagus nerve from the entire nervous system. It's part of the communication that moves through. Sometimes, because we know the names of these different component parts of our body, we can think of them as being separate in their categorizing, can't we? This nerve does this nerve does that. And actually, of course, where we're more and more understanding is that all of the nerves carry a level of communication through themselves instantaneously at every point. So when we think of the vagus nerve, the first place to really position it in is within the nervous system, with all of its myriad energies and wisdoms. But then, of course, much like the beautiful outfit you're wearing today, you've got different parts. If I look at the screen, we've got all kinds of different beautiful necklaces, all kinds of things that have gone together to create the whole. Your hair, your lipstick, everything is creating the whole of what I'm seeing right now.
Yes.
And it's the same with our energy system, our physicality, and our soul system. They're all part of that amazing being that is you.
Yes.
So when we think of those three vibrations of body, mind, and soul, then the vagus nerve for me sits in the body system. It is part of your physical and structural system. Of course, it moves across all three of those fundamental principles of vibrations, but still, it's a physical system. When we think about the mind aspect, then there are some energetic channels which don't quite have the same electromagnetic energy, acupuncture, acupressure, and the fact that they work with the energy channels in the body that are deeply associated with an individual organ. Well, these extraordinary channels or extraordinary vessels are actually older than the meridian system, and they work with activating your core energy, your soul energy. For me, when I look at the soul energy, then there's two component parts of it. One is the energetic core, which of course the ancient Chinese would have called the Daiji pole, and the ancient Indians would have called the Sushumna Nadi. So many, many different words. All of the mystic traditions have an understanding of this central energy that runs right through the very core of you. Of course, your chakras are aligned to that. The energy hubs above your head and beneath your feet, that's all coming through that central core. So if we think about that kind of central or core soul energy, and the fact that then it radiates out through all that you are, well, there's two ways of working with
this kind of mind, body, soul aspect of the vagus nerve. The energetic core being one of them, that soul level, and then one of these extraordinary channels being the vital vessel that comes from being wrapped all the way around that core. It begins to emanate out into different parts of your body system. If you have a womb or had a womb at any point, it really gets received into that area in that lower abdomen area. If you didn't have a womb or don't have a womb, then there's an energetic house rather than a physical house. Your lower dantian, this amazing power pack, like the battery for your physical power. It's the house of all of your physical potential. That lives in that lower section.
So it's slightly different for men and women. Yeah, I mean, we all have the lower dantian, but the womb actually is like a receptacle sort of thing. Is that right?
Absolutely. And, in these day and ages, I think we have to be very mindful about using words like men and women. But
apparently we
there
do.
was or has been a physical womb, then that will receive a lot of that vital vessel energy. And if there wasn't or has never been a womb, then it sits a little bit deeper than where the womb would sit in the physical body. And then it wraps around all of the pelvis. It goes down the legs. It comes up the front into the mouth in various parts of the head, and then connects deep in with that vagus nerve. So you get this kind of from the core, from the soul, radiating out through the vital vessel into the vagus nerve and moving the other way around as well. So that's, when we think about energy anatomy as well as physical anatomy, wow, it can get crazy complex, but also beautifully simple when we consider that every part of your body, every part of your consciousness, every part of your soul is continually in that place of emerging more and more and more into balance. So that's what excites me.
It does excite me too. I'm so fascinated by the whole thing, and it also because it's ancient knowledge, but it's coming as if it was a new knowledge now to be rediscovered, isn't it? So I just find it totally fascinating how everything interacts. And I say to people quite frequently when I'm doing the gong bath, because your physical body is like the fruit of a tree, and you don't see the branches or the twigs and the trunk. You're just seeing the fruit. So you assume that the fruit is all there is. But in actual fact, there's this vast mechanism, living organism rather, supporting that fruit. And we forget because we can't see it. We're not all blessed like you with this amazing vision, to be able to see the energy of things. If we could, and you, I think, said that we can all learn it. I want to learn it. If we could, we'd probably be a little less disconnected because we would be able to see the effect that we might be having on somebody, or the communication between yourself and a plant or a tree or an animal, something like that. You'd be able to witness it. And perhaps we could, at some point in this conversation, talk a little bit about how people might learn to do that, to begin to develop that sort of. Is it an inner sight, or are you actually seeing it with your physical eyes, would you say?
Yeah. It's one of those really, I firmly believe that we all perceive energy at all times in multiple ways, each of them dependent on our senses. And we're really comfortable with the thought in our modern society that some people perhaps learn more through their ears, or some people learn more through their eyes, or some people really need it to be a tangible physical experiencing. So we're really comfortable with that when it comes to learning styles. I could hear something many, many times and not grasp it as easily as if I read it once. If I read something once, or I see a picture once, because for me, I've got that real kind of visual way of perceiving the world and interacting with the world. So I think the very, very first thing to say is what's really important for me, and in the way I work and teach, is not that we try and aspire for everybody to see energy or to see that conscious connection. It's about perceiving it in their own strengths. Because if you're always trying to chase a way that isn't natural to you, well, that's a fool's game, eh? And that's not to say that someone who isn't deeply, if we think about that vision, we'd call it clairvoyance. Yeah, it's that ability to have clear sight. But there's many clairs. There's clairaudience, the ability to hear clearly. And that includes hearing energy, hearing the words that aren't said, hearing the vibration between living beings. If we think about clairsentience, it's clear feeling. It's that place of being able to use your body as an amazing receptor of information that's all around you. And so many people right now, that clairsentience seems to be increasing abundantly at the moment.
I'd agree with that.
And of course, people are identifying as empaths or high sensitive people. Yeah, that's that ability to kind of have the body being used as the antenna that's all around. So again, for people who are clairsentient, then it may be that having that vision of external understanding of energy isn't there. But my goodness, their body's so powerful with that. So, and then of course the other one, and it's the one that is most challenging for many people to really trust and believe, is that claircognizance, the way of just kind of knowing something. And nearly all of us have experienced that, when the phone rings and we know that it's Uncle Bob or your sister or your best friend before you even pick it up. So that level of claircognizance, that can also be really, I hesitate to say the word trained, but you can tune into that in ways that suddenly the living connectivity of the world becomes absolutely apparent to you, just as for someone like me who has that sight, it's apparent to me. But I think that's a really, really important place to start, is don't go chasing what isn't your natural skill.
Yeah.
Think about it in your own life, where you have your big awareness in your senses. Do you physically experience the world? Are you someone who sits in a restaurant and can have the conversation with the people you're with and has already picked up on all of the other conversations happening at tables around you? Because your ears are really tuned into that.
Yes, that happens to me a lot.
Your own big gifts, it's already there.
Yeah. And do you think, I mean, if we're talking about this interwoven spiritual, physical, metaphysical, amazing organism that is a human being, that by tuning in or making sure that your vagus nerve was working fully, and by tuning in this way, that you can help to improve your intuition, and that is like a path to opening up the clairs for people who are not necessarily experiencing that, or not consciously aware, perhaps. Because for me, most of the time I'm consciously aware when I get number patterns, like all the time. I've got a list as long as my arm. I write them down and look them up every time I see one. I hear things sometimes. I definitely see things, occasionally with my actual eyes, but mostly with my inner vision. Yeah. And I think I told you last time what I saw during a gong bath, where I saw this vision of the Matrix breaking down and sort of participating in the birthing of the new Earth. And this is like 2016, it's so long ago. But, I get things like that. But maybe people have been trained to ignore that kind of information and dismiss it as illogical and irrational.
Yeah, totally.
And leading on to another point is it's also about being female. I think, the feminine intuition has been derided for so long as well that, we've been put down for it. But in actual fact, it is a gift.
I think that fundamental rebalancing between the yin and the yang, the feminine principles and the masculine principles, no matter who you are, how you are, it's about understanding that each of us house that feminine principle and masculine principle. And we house them in relation to each other. And so that place of balance becomes key, doesn't it? And the vagus nerve is important for helping you bring balance in. And at the same time, it's about looking for the balance in order to support the vagus nerve. It has to be, we have to come from the mind and the body awareness, don't we?
So it's kind of,
you could do all of the exercises for the vagus nerve you ever wanted. And if you're crazy stressed in every part of your life and not making any changes there, then you're kind of firefighting at that point. And it's a fire that you can't ever put out. Your adrenal energy will always having to respond far quicker and more powerfully than this beautiful parasympathetic arm of the vital vessel, of the vagus nerve. So it is about that sort of being in the center and making choices and actions from that center, isn't it? Actions to kind of, I think of that pathway through life is just the more aware we are to just bring in those little tweaks. Rarely is it huge changes in a day, but it's that little tweak, isn't it? It's recognizing. I remember my husband coming into me a little while ago, a few years ago, and he walked in. I was in a really, really busy stage of my life, and I'm a recovering perfectionist, and sometimes I recover more than
I haven't recovered yet from that. I'm still a work in progress.
So,
yeah, I hear you.
It is a work in progress, exactly. But I was in a stage where, wow, I was head down, focused down, and working so hard to the place where the beauty. And I have a lot of beauty in my life. I've got children, I've got animals, I've got an amazing husband. Like I was no longer being mindful of that beauty. And my very, very wise husband walked into me and into my studio where I worked, and he walked in and he just stood in front of me. And I looked at him with that kind of like, I'm busy, you know. And he said, just letting you know, I think you've become a little bit focused on work, and it would do you good to stop for a while and go up and get out for a walk. And then he turned and left. He said, I'm just going to say something, listen, and then I'm going to leave. And he left. And of course, at first, as he left, I'm like, well, that's absolutely ridiculous. I'm totally fine, and I've just got so much to do. And then within about 3 breaths, I thought, he's totally right. Oh my goodness. And I shut my computer, got out of the room, thanked him, and then went out for a walk. And of course, the day changed for me, and it reminded me of that balance all the time between the yin, the yang, the active and the internal, the outer world, the inner world. So such a tiny tweak. And in that case, I was very fortunate. I had someone who kind of stepped up as guardian of my soul at that point, didn't he?
Yeah.
But we can do that for each other. And we can do it for ourselves. And it's those tiny little tweaks that I feel are the gift of life, when we can just keep moving between them. Suddenly life is filled with so much more joy.
Marvellous. Yes, I think especially those of us who work for ourselves, we really need to be extra vigilant for that. And I have to say that I haven't been the weather's been so bad. I really haven't wanted to go out in the rain, to be honest, but I love to go out in nature, and that's one of the ways I reset myself. But also I get a bit fed up. I'm not very people friendly. When I go to nature, I don't want to see people. So, but going into nature in London is kind of difficult because there are too many people for me. I sound really antisocial, but I like space. So if I'm really, really feeling the need, I drive out of London and I go for a long walk in a place that I know where I can be just by myself in nature. And that really resets my whole being, actually. And I've been feeling the need for that for a while, and I haven't done it just because it's been so dang wet. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm not really a fan of stomping around in a hole, all covered up in rainproof gear. So, but what do you think would be the best way, or something small that people could do on a regular basis to help keep themselves in balance and in tune, to making sure that, because the thing is, you can't always be aware of the mechanisms that you're concentrating on, but just small things that you can do to keep yourself in balance and to help these things sort of tick over nicely. What do you think would be the most important?
Well, that is a question I definitely have two very different answers for. The first one is that what would be important for you might be very different to what would be important for me, because the objective of any of those small practices is that they align what's out of alignment in you. And so, of course, that can differ. It can differ every day. It can differ every week. So having one practice that kind of aligns everything, one simple short practice. I'm not talking here about something like meditation or a meditative walk. That's going to help align anything and everything. But as far as simple energy techniques or exercises, then what's really key is to understand what helps you. On my website, I've got many of the kind of most common ones that will help bring you back. And I've put together a sequence called the Radiant Health Routine. And that takes about 10 minutes to do. It's a beautiful starting point, and it will help bring in a lot of places that might have been moving out of balance in you. But of course, the real key is, what do you need? And exploring different understandings, thinking about whether you're grounded or not. That, in a way, there are two systems energetically that will always determine everything about your health, your ability to be conscious and express your soul needs. One of them is the health of the heart field, this beautiful electromagnetic energy that really keeps the rhythm of all of the other electromagnetic energy in your body, as well as being a real bridge between your physicality and your soul. Yeah, that's the place of the heart energy in the body. So one is the heart field, and the other one is whether you're grounded or not. Yes. And that groundedness is dependent on the heart field, and the heart field is depending on the groundedness. Anything that grounds you, when I'm talking about groundedness, I want to be really clear here. I'm talking about that flow of electromagnetic and subtle energy from beneath your feet to above your head, and from above your head to beneath your feet. For me, groundedness is not about what your feet are doing and what the earth is doing. It's about, can that entire flow, when we think about all of your 30 plus trillion cells, each of them has an electromagnetic charge, and that electromagnetic charge needs to be able to flow through all that you are. So understanding that kind of energetic core and pull through the body becomes really key. So having said all of that, I would love to share a couple of ways that can really help. And one of the most simple, and definitely my favorite, is the heart hug. And every single person will have done this at some point, just instinctively. And it's the place of just tucking in, so crossing the arms over the chest and having your fingers in your armpits. If that, for whatever reason, isn't comfortable, you can just place your hands on the arm crease. But for most people, it's comfortable to do that. And it is an amazing way of working with the heart field, your groundedness, the vagus nerve, the energetic core. There is so much that in this one action, we can just help everything come back into the center so it can flow out in balance. And for me, often if I'm here, I just bring in a little hug. And often when I'm here, I also bring in the mind and the consciousness of gratitude. I thank my heart. I've had physical challenges in my heart, in my own life. My mum died from my heart
back. So I give a lot of reason right now that I can chat, that I can think. That gratitude for my body, gratitude for my center, gratitude for the world around me. That one practice, wow, that can change the day. And if you change enough days, that changes your life, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's so true. It's so true, isn't it? Because if you think that every time you choose, you're choosing a different reality, in effect.
Yeah.
So in every second, every split second, the decision that you make sets you on a different path, consciously or otherwise. So that these kind of tools are great because then you just stop for a moment of stillness and appreciation, and you can kind of decide, you can sort of clearly decide which way you're going to go and how you're going to approach it. And I think that's wonderful. And obviously the work that I do is a way of resetting also, because your cells get completely massaged with sound, and this shakes out all of the blocks and the toxins that might be stuffed into cells or packed away in various places because they're too uncomfortable to look at. So I'm very interested in the idea of combining the kind of work that you do with the kind of work that I do, because I think it's like for me it looks like this kind of work is going to become more and more important as people become less and less satisfied with the way that the health system is currently presenting, the control that's involved with all of that, and the lack of ability to question or look at alternatives. It's very difficult to get a prescription for something which is natural because there's no profit in it, so it's not marketed, and so it doesn't come up on the prescriptions list, and all of this kind of thing. I think it's going to be in the next few years. I think all of that is going to open up, I feel, and I think that people are really going to need some kind of stabilizing influences initially, before everybody learns more about their own system and their own nutritional status or whatever it is they need to do for themselves. I think there's going to be like a pinch point, and I'm seeing that happening fairly soon, where alternative therapies and things like we both do will become really crucial to help soothe the soul enough for people to be able to gain stability again after the chaos that we've all lived through.
The system of healthcare is really challenged, isn't it? And I have so much compassion for every single person working inside it. Every doctor, every nurse, every person working in that system, they chose to go into that level of work because they wanted to help people. And instead they're trapped inside a system of dysfunction that really needs a lot of support. And it's trying to shore up a need that it can't meet. And so, my goodness, what a challenging situation for both clients and patients who are needing help, and for the healthcare practitioners who are trying to give it. But of course, it's only when we think about that responsibility of understanding and maintaining our own health, then for me, the mainstream healthcare is most amazing at emergency medicine.
Yes, I quite agree.
Medicine, it is phenomenal. I have used it myself. My family members have used it. Wow. I mean, let's really, really give praise.
We have to appreciate that side and not throw everything out with the bathwater. It's true. Yeah.
Where it really gets challenged is understanding how to meet the needs and demands of stress in modern life. That was never what it was designed to manage. And obviously now most of our health challenges are created through stress. So it just needs a whole different understanding of what healthcare, our modern medical system is amazing at disease care, amazing at disease care, but we want to live healthy lives. So we need to understand other ways to work with healthcare and totally,
prevention. I think
of those. Totally. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, how do we care for our health? Is a whole different question than how do we prevent disease? How do we care
or
for
cure
health?
Disease. Yes, exactly.
And I think that should be the key question, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with that. And also self-responsibility. I think, because again, we've all been, I don't want to go into an us and them sort of scenario, but we've kind of been conditioned to give our power away to someone else, like, as if we don't have any answers ourselves. And yet, if we were to trust ourselves more, we might be more able to receive the guidance from our own intuitive systems. I mean, I know I do, and I don't want to keep talking about myself, but it's the only reference point I have currently. So I get intuitive knowings about what I need. And then if I follow it, and I use muscle testing as well. I don't know whether you use muscle testing, but I do that quite frequently, either with the ring finger, thumb, this one, or just using my arm, which is a whole other topic. In fact, I'm going to do hopefully a chat with a kinesiologist quite soon, so that will be an interesting pairing. But I think for people to learn to trust themselves again, and allow themselves to be guided, and not just assuming, because I think this is what happened to my mother's generation, and it still goes on even to this day, because she totally trusted everything that she was told was in her best interests, and I'm sure it was done with that intention, but of course it set her up for a whole lifetime of ill health, unfortunately, because the consequences of the operation couldn't have been foreseen, and all the drugs that she was given to ameliorate the effects of other drugs, or the things that didn't work anymore because she'd had this operation, like her digestive system and stuff like that. So it's a really exciting time when you look at it from that perspective. It's so it's a pregnant moment of change, isn't it? I think that we are actually really blessed to be present right now, to be able to be to witness this change. I mean, it's very difficult for people, myself included. I find the chaos, especially because I'm a Virgo, I like order. I don't like chaos at all. But having to learn to sort of navigate life with one foot in either not dimension but frequency, I suppose. So having to skate along in sort of normal everyday reality here, and then the other foot might be up here somewhere trying to navigate the spiritual side, and it's a little bit like this. And I certainly dip in and out of being very sort of peaceably aligned with my spiritual side, and then deep in the nitty-gritty kind of every day. And I think that's quite hard for everybody right now, I think, to navigate that state of being, because it is so fluid. And maybe it's just learning to accommodate that fluidity. Perhaps that's just the way we have to learn to be, instead of accepting it, or thinking that everything has to be defined and in neat little packages. Perhaps it's a step up, rather than waiting for everything to lock down again. That's a wrong choice of word. For everything to solidify. Perhaps it's a sort of moment of growth and expansion.
Yeah, that awareness that we're at a place of emergence, and that's always it's in many ways. I feel we are being invited to be edge walkers, and some people are born edge walking, but most people aren't. And right now we're being invited to walk in that place of the unknown. We don't even know the questions to ask to create a different way
being for every human being. We don't even know the questions.
Yes.
So that means we got to get in there in the messy middle.
Yes.
Deconstruct our own story enough to say, I really want to hear your story without judgment, without need to defend. That's kind of the place that we're all being asked to meet somewhere, aren't we? And how do we do that? How do we get creative together? And I have absolutely no doubt that we will do it and we can do it. I have a very deep sense of trust in that. Will it be easy? Absolutely not. Are enough of the 8 billion people ready to really commit to that and take that leap into that place? I fully believe that. So,
I do believe that. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well,
and
we need to.
Yeah. And I also believe in that old tipping point. The 100th monkey thing. That's not a very comfortable phrase, but you know what I'm talking about. Is when a certain percentage of humanity make that internal decision, and then affect thousands of people without necessarily having to know them, and that energetic quantum entanglement then spreads out throughout the rest of humanity, and things that can go like wildfire then, I think. I don't know how close. I kind of feel we're pretty close to that point if we haven't already passed it, but it's not actually manifesting in the everyday yet.
A little bit more collapse of the old political systems and financial systems.
Going to
or
hurt.
At least an emergence from within them, isn't there?
Yes.
So many of the corporate models are changing. So many of them are evolving into very, very different ways of being. And they're the leaders. They're the ones that are showing the way to everywhere else. But they're not yet in majority until we move more there. But it is emerging. And every one of us is a part of that. Like you were talking about that moment of choice that we have every minute of the day. We have that choice to be a different vibration, to choose kindness, to choose environmental consciousness, to choose the consciousness of justice when we are engaging with our choices as to what we buy, how we buy it. Just to be in that place of conscious choice, a really powerful place for every single one of us to exist within.
Totally agree. That seems like quite a good moment to wrap this conversation up, I think. I don't know how you feel. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think maybe the only thing is the question of what can each person do to fan that flame of hope in their heart. Because it takes courage right now to show up. It takes courage. And the difference of courage and not is that hope. And so to question it, for everybody to ask themselves kind of, how can I nurture my hope today? What do I need to do? Who do I need to chat with? Who do I need to have a hug with? What do I need to watch or read or touch? Like, how do I nurture that hope in my heart? Because from that place, we are very powerful.
Yes, I was just noticing that you had your hand on your heart, and I was going to say that obviously the heart plays a really important role in the nurturing of hope. And that just for anyone who doesn't know how great this field is that is created by your heart. I think you talked about it when we spoke before. And obviously, depending on the individual, it extends a great many number of feet around the human body. And this is how it's like having an external antenna that picks up signals from all around and from other people. And I think I've always worked through the heart center when I've been doing my work, and in the meditations that I do as well, the heart is usually involved. But I do think it's really interesting for people to understand that the heart field is bigger than the brain field, because you would expect, because we're so much the way that we think is so brain centric that we don't really give the heart the same amount of credibility. I don't know if that's the right word, but emphasis. Okay, let's put it like that. So we emphasis logic and rationality and everything being just so.
And Alicia, that's not even one of my favorite quotes is from the 1600s, and it's the philosopher Blaise Pascal who wrote, "The heart has reason that reason cannot know."
Oh, I like that.
That place of the wisdom of the heart and the wisdom of the mind being quite different.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
And also just to mention that for people who really, when you're talking about the heart field, on my website, I've got pages of understanding your energy anatomy with illustrations from two beautiful illustrators that I worked with for 2 years to really bring the visuals on what your energy system looks like. So I really encourage people to go and look at that. That's pruneharris.com, because I think once you have seen a visual of it, you can connect with and understand it more. It's
it definitely helps. Yes, the illustrations are really, really nice. And of course, you've got various courses that people can do, workshops and things like that. And these are all also on the same website. So if anybody wants to check out, I'd thoroughly recommend going to Prune's website and having a look at what's available. And do you have an online community as well besides your website? Are you on Facebook?
Yes, we do. Yes. Yep, on Facebook at the moment. We are just piloting a different membership platform that will be coming in the new year, because I fully understand that there are a lot of concerns from a lot of people about using Facebook, and it's limited in some of its capacity. So yes, stay tuned. There will be something coming in probably early spring, a different membership platform, but for now, and Facebook and Thinkific, of course, is where we host all of our courses, from 1 hour courses to free ones to 20-week courses. So there's a lot there.
Brilliant. Great, thank you. So what I'm going to do, because
thank you so much,
it's lovely to talk to you. I feel like there's a whole list of unasked questions that haven't popped into my brain, but I dare say we could always chat again at some point in the future. And I do invite you to come if you're ever in London. I know you're a very long way away, but should you find yourself in London, please come to one of my sessions. I'd be really happy to host you there.
Thank you.
And so it'd be really nice to meet face to face one day. And perhaps we could arrange to convene again in a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, something like that, and see where we're at. That would be really nice. Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Bye, Alicia.
Take care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.